Hello and welcome to my channel, J.I. Colorist. My name is Jody and today we're going to do something a little bit different. I have this book, Watercolor with Me in the Forest by Dana Fox, and it is a watercolor for beginners tutorial book, and it is on my books to touch list. I also was reached out by a fellow YouTube channel, Be Cozy, and she also has this book, and we both had not touched in it, so we decided as part of watercolor month, which is July, we would crack open the book and give it a go. I did some work in this book, and let me tell you, I am not qualified to teach anybody how to watercolor. So this is not a Jody teaching you how to watercolor. This is me kind of doing more of a book review. But I will point you out, there is a link to Be Cozy's channel in the video description. Please go and check out her video. It will be published the same day as mine, which is Sunday, July 16th. So I hope that you enjoy learning a little bit more about this book in this video. Again, this is one of Dana Fox's 3 books. I have her other book, which just a minute, I'll grab it. This is Dana Fox's other book that I have, which is Watercolor with Me in the Ocean. And then this one I got for Christmas is In the Forest. So obviously the ocean one is items you see in the ocean. So I've got a whale, and I just finished today doing this hermit crab. So I'm slowly learning how to do watercolors. I've had watercolors for quite a while. I like to play with them, but I have had no formal teaching. So I thought that this book would be a good way for me to learn a few techniques. And what's fun about this book is that you actually paint right in the book along with it. So it's divided into sections: wet on dry, wet on wet, painting fur, and ink and wash. She's got an introduction. This first page is quite handy because it shows you that the colors that are going to be used in the book itself. And each page, so here's a little explanation on what she means by wet on dry. And it's important that you read through this before trying the exercises. And I found that out. So the first exercise that is in the book is acorns, and this is the completed acorn that I did, and I will insert some video of me struggling to do this. I also pulled out and wanted to see if the paper itself in this book would hinder or help a person learning, so I also brought out a fluid cold press watercolor block, and I did the same painting on here. The paper here, the paint did move a little easier. It did lift easier, so the quality of paper is definitely a bit higher on a block. But if you're just learning and getting down some brush strokes, I think that the paper in here is sufficient for that. But yes, the pictures are already drawn on. So we'll go to the next page and you will see that. So the next one is a caterpillar, and there's a light outline of a caterpillar here. So that's just so that you can see. Now back on the acorns, we used 3 colors. So it tells you right on here the colors, the supplies you need, and then there's a step-by-step instruction on how to do that. Now I did follow each step, and what I did learn is that you need to actually, for the wet on dry, you need to be waiting for the paper to dry in between so that you can keep doing wet on dry. And I hadn't really realized that when painting before. So that was something that I did learn, and something that I do need obviously more practice on. You don't do one exercise and become a watercolor expert. It takes a long time. Just like coloring, we need to practice our coloring. So this was my first attempt, and I think that while it doesn't look great, it doesn't look that bad either. So I'm not disappointed that I did try this, but I just thought I'd let you look through this book a bit more. At the very beginning of the book, for the projects, it does tell you what each project is. So under Wet on Wet, you can find the acorn, the caterpillar, the fern. So if you're looking for a specific thing, you want to learn how to maybe do a snail, it's under the Wet on Wet, and it says it's on page 45. So it is nice that there is a glossary of where everything is in the book if you're looking for something specific. The book does have a nice range of different items to learn to paint. So for instance, there's a monarch butterfly, there's a dogwood rose, there's a cabin, so it's not just animals and bugs and stuff, there's a little bit of architecture in here as well, and so that's over here. There is a turtle or tortoise, so something that I wouldn't have thought about in the forest, so I was surprised to see that in here. And then on the fur area, there's a stoat, which I also was not familiar with. So it's an interesting book. It's not, I mean, obviously you have mouse and stuff like that, owls, grasshoppers. So there's a whole range of pictures in here, something for everybody. And so we're going to be doing Wet on Dry project, and that's the acorn. So we're going to start off with the acorn though, and it's going to use 3 colors, yellow ochre, raw umber, and burnt umber. So I will go ahead and pull out yellow ochre, raw umber, and burnt umber, and be right back. So we're working on this side of the page, and the directions are on this side, so hopefully you can see both. And there's a sketch here. Okay, so I've got a number 6 round paintbrush. I've pulled out a little pool of yellow ochre, raw umber, and burnt umber on the palette here, which is just a ceramic white plate. And I'm going to read the instructions, wash my paintbrush off. Okay, it says, working on the bottom half of the acorn first, fill the areas with a light wash of raw umber mixed with yellow ochre. Let's do the same on this paper at the same time so that we're keeping things even. So we're going to do a light wash. Step 2, after a few minutes, once dry, add a second wash of the same color. Try to mimic the streaky textures of an acorn by painting light lines from the top of the area to the bottom. We are going to be doing step 2 now, which is apply second coat wash. Step 3 is add another layer using burnt umber around the bottom, top, and sides of the acorn. You can blend any harsh lines out with water. Burnt umber. So that's a color we haven't used yet. So this is the burnt umber color. So we can use some water to blend it. Let's try this side too. So this side doesn't. This watercolor paper doesn't lift as easily. It's having a hard time. So there's definitely easier to lift on the watercolor block. This side is going to take a couple of more coats, I think. So we're going to have to again wait for this to dry. So step 4 will be fill the acorn tops with a light wash of burnt umber and then apply additional layers as you did previously, darkening shadow areas such as the center and sides and top. We'll wait for that to dry, and then we'll be adding some additional layers. So that's one thing I have, I guess, learned, is that watercolor doesn't happen all at once. It seems to be very much about putting a layer of watercolor down, waiting for that to dry, adding more on top, which is something that I didn't really realize before. So interesting. We'll be back when this is dry. So step 5 and 6 say 5, let the previous layers dry once again and create a scale-like pattern, which we've done with a thin brush tip and burnt umber. Try to keep the paint lighter in areas where the paint is lighter and darker where the shadows have formed. And step 6, fill the acorn stems in with burnt umber and you're done. So my acorns do not look exactly like those acorns, but I think they do look like acorns. So I'll let them dry. Final look at the picture that I did finish in this book. Overall, the paper is fine for a beginner, but it definitely is not a high quality watercolor paper. It did not soak through, so it obviously is really watercolor paper. So there's no denying that. However, re-wetting and moving items actually on the paper with the paint was difficult. I definitely didn't use enough water when I was doing my wash. So I guess I would like a few more instructions, and maybe you can't get that from a book, but I would have appreciated, and I still need instructions on things like how to hold my paintbrush, how to get the lines that I want, that kind of thing. So maybe I'm expecting too much from a book, and I should probably just take some watercolor classes to learn more. But it is nice to understand different techniques and what is a wash and those kind of things. So while I do appreciate that there are already pictures drawn out for me, and that really helps me just concentrate on actually painting, I think I need a bit more instruction on actually using a paintbrush and how to hold it and stuff like that. So that is the one drawback, I would say. So the paper is sufficient, but it's not great. So if you do have your own watercolor paper, I would take and trace or draw a similar image onto your other watercolor paper and use this as your first practice, and then do another practice on the book of your choice. But those are my initial review of this. I will continue to work in this book. I think that there is still value in the step-by-step instruction, because as a beginner it does help to know that you do need to do things in steps and in order, and so I did appreciate that. As we wrap up this video, I ask a question to you, is do you have any of Dana Fox's watercolor tutorial books? If so, have you started using them? Quite a few people had commented earlier on a video that they had the books but hadn't started. So it's July, watercolor month. Pull them out. If you're using them, how did you find the books? Are you happy with them? What's your review? I look forward to checking out Bee's video and seeing how she thought, what she thought about the book. And I encourage you to go check her channel out as well. Again, Bee Cozy is their YouTube channel name, and it will be in the video description. Until next time, I hope you are pulling out whatever books you have, be it they're watercolor or coloring, and you're doing something colorful and creative this week. And until next time, happy coloring. Bye-bye.